So we're going to start with the rapid fire round, but actually even before we start with that, there's going to be 15 questions. You can pass any of the question you like, but only one word or one sentence. All right, so the first one, at what age do you want to retire?
At 90.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
I get up and I'm ready.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Oh, pass on that.
Favorite color?
Blue.
What time of day are you most inspired?
In the morning, 5 a.m.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
7.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming technology or marketing trend is blank.
Is generative music.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened?
Oh, it was in Germany, small town called Leonberg.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
The biggest mistake of your career?
Not starting a company earlier.
How do you relax?
I listen to music and I like to run.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
3.
A habit of yours that you hate?
Waking up in the morning and having to take a really, really cold shower.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Is just to start.
Your favorite Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV show?
Breaking Bad was awesome.
The last movie that you saw that was memorable?
Skip that. I've got kids. Didn't see any movies.
The last song you listened to that was memorable?
From the Stars.
All right, well, that's the end of the rapid fire round. You did amazing.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the bigger questions, which you can answer with as much ease as you like. But before that, is there any one of the rapid fire questions you want to answer in greater detail?
Oh, very good question. No, I think the kiss part will probably leave out here. Yeah.
Okay. So you built your first software at the age of 14. What made you particularly interested in building software at such a young age? And what was your thought process going along?
Yeah.
Speaking of kids.
Yeah, I was a kid back then. And one of the challenges was like all of my friends had like these cool computers, Amigas, etc., where you could play games or do music or do any fun stuff. My dad, however, bought a PC. And so there was nothing really to do besides word processing, which like still today I find pretty boring. So in a way that was fixing my own needs. I wanted to have like games. I wanted to have like my ability to do music. And that was just not possible on PC because there was no software. So I think that was one of the principles that helped me in my life quite well, where I thought like, hey, how hard can that be? It's like, I'm just going to write my own software and that's what I just did. And I think that's the part where starting out in the music software, but then later on with Babbel as well, I always found it super inspiring to see the need that I had or people around me had, and then just use technology to actually fulfill that need or build tools and software to actually help people do stuff that they couldn't do without. And that started at a very early age, and I still think that's a very good principle because that led to the creation of Babbel as well.
I feel like I had the same situation, but I spent all my time on Microsoft Paint.
Not too shabby neither, yeah.
But speaking of limitations leading you to be creative in this manner, are there any limitations today that are causing you to be creative and innovative in new spheres?
Yeah. I think like most of the limitations can actually be quite helpful because with limitations, I still think up to today there is so many things that seem really like we're living in the stone age of things. Like we're talking about AI a lot right now, but then it's like super inspiring to see what ChatGPT can do. And then you look at the phone and what it actually does, and it's still like pretty uninspiring. And I think that's really the edge in terms of figuring out for me, like what's coming next, what can I fix, how can I use these limitations or overcome those limitations with new tech, new products.
So speaking of overcoming, according to you, why are Agile methodologies critical in project management?
Yeah, super good question. And I think the biggest lever I usually have is not doing stupid things that shouldn't be done in the first place. And because you can be very efficient with classical project management, but the risk, especially in a startup environment, is that you're building absolutely the wrong thing. So from my perspective, what agile methodologies lead to, or to actually get to a build, measure, learn cycle, where you build something, you ship it out to users, you ship it out to your target customers, you actually observe whether it solves their problem or it doesn't. This really rapidly is super important to build something that not just sounds great on paper, but that will be actually used. And for me, the whole agile movement is really enabling these build, measure, learn cycles, because that's what I found is the only thing that will prevent me or anyone else from building stuff for a very, very long time that will never be used. And I think that's the ultimate waste of all of that, because I've had so many examples in my career where you start out with an idea that sounds absolutely amazing. You talk it through with friends. It still sounds amazing. Then you go into like your room and like you build it for quite a long time, only in the end to find out, actually that's not solving the issue in the way I thought it would be. And that's where whole agile methodologies, I think, can come in to say like, okay, let's take just 2 weeks. And after the 2 weeks, we're going to ship it, no matter how embarrassing it is. But from that, we'll actually be able to learn and inspect and adapt and continue with that. So I think that is, for me, like a bigger part of the philosophy of build, measure, learn, and how agile methods actually fit into that cycle.
Could you give us an interesting or engaging story about one of these stupidities or ideas gone amiss?
Oh, there is so many. So where exactly should I start? Maybe one element really early on in Babbel was we started in 2008 with the first web app, and then we actually did technology and from a product perspective quite interesting things. So we did like a speech recognition and in the browser on the device in 2000, I think like 9, that was. So we had all that amazing technology back in there. So cross compilation between this technology and that technology. We spent quite a lot of time until we had the technology ready. And then we figured out once we deployed it and once we put it into the hands of users, they were actually failing at the very first step. So like the whole chain of things that we've built, the first step was something where people really, really struggled. So all of the effort that went into that, we could have prevented by just saying like, okay, like what's the first step? How would people actually use speech recognition? So I think that is a very drastic example of where not doing something like that or waiting for too long can really hinder the company's progress in the end.
So let's pivot to marketing a little. How can performance-based marketing help in the growth of one's business? Do you think that performance-based marketing as a type of digital advertising is the need of the hour?
I think every startup especially needs some growth engine. And in the very end, like if you boil it down, there is not that many growth engines available. So the whole digital advertisement is one of the growth engines. You can go for PR, virality as well. There is other forms as well, but I think it is a very important part because, again, coming back to the build, measure, learn cycle, I think with digital advertising and performance marketing, you can actually find out the whole chain. Like I used to think of like user acquisition, especially in digital channels, is one step of like fulfilling those needs, and you can iterate quite fast with digital marketing, with performance marketing as well, to find your right target audience and figure out whether you have like product market fit.
So what role do you think, in the answer to this and to another previous question, what role do you think instinct has to play in the modern world if we have growth-based marketing models and we have models for agile? Where do you think instinct comes in?
I still think of most of the really great products that have been done in the world. Probably a big part came out of instinct. I think it came out of somebody scratching their own need, having their own ideas on like what should be done. I think all of the technologies, growth engines, models that we have, I think that is just a part of the mix. I think the whole being instinctive about things I wouldn't like start any company, any product where my instinct would tell me otherwise. I still think that is very helpful. And I think that's the part what makes the difference between human and machines.
So speaking of instinct leading to the founding of things, Babbel is a destination for language learners globally. What was the problem that you identified for language learning that led to the creation of Babbel, and how did you identify it?
Yeah. That was a very funny moment because all of the 4 co-founders of Babbel, we actually quit our jobs to start a music software tech company. So that was the moment. We all quit the jobs, we started out. And in that moment, one of my co-founders came and asked, like, hey, I want to learn Spanish. Is there, like, I couldn't find anything online. And that was about 2007. And we said, like, let me Google that for you. And it was Web 2.0, Flickr, everything was online, at least from our perspective. But language learning wasn't. So we said, like, okay, how hard can it be to build something like that? To help people learn a language or to build a product that even my mom would be able to use. And that was the founding moment of Babbel. So we envisioned a world where you could use our tools and our software and our platform with Babbel to learn a language and to do that online. And that was the founding moment. And I think what's really exciting to see is now after 15 years, we developed into being a platform of language learning experience. So we not just have like the self-study app that we started with, but we're doing podcasts, where we're doing games, and we have Babbel Live, which is our small group class led by experienced teachers, which is super helpful because it really helps you to learn and speak a language in the first place.
So could you maybe relate the reason why you chose the name Babbel for the app with the mythical Tower of Babel and the confusion that it leads to? What role does technology have to play in this myth, and where do you think you could relate this to?
Yeah. So when the first name of the company came out and like the idea of Babbel was there, honestly, I have to say I hated the name. That was my first instinct, but it grew on me over a couple of months because Babbel is really a way of, it has connotation, like you mentioned, around the Tower of Babel, but I think it has to do something with multiculturalism. Nowadays, there's lots of dialects, at least in Germany, where like there is a connotation of to babble, which is kind of like to casually talk. And I think it captures pretty well what we want to do with the company and with the product. So not to build a product for like the elite, but really to help millions of people learn and be able to speak a language in the first place. And I think Babbel is a very great name to actually express exactly that.
All right, so what advice would you have for young minds who want to step into their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I think one of the things for all of those who need to hear it, there is no magic silver bullet out there. Most of the time it's going to suck. It's going to be really, really hard. But in the end, I think that can be the journey of your lifetime. And I think the very uttermost important thing is just to start. I think there is so many people out there who think they need that skill, they need like these other experience, they need that type of work experience before they can actually start. And I think in many cases, this is just your mind playing tricks with you. I think the most important is just get started. Everything else will sort out itself.
So besides your own sector, if I were to reverse back time and you had to start in another sector right now, what would be the other sector that you would encourage people to start in?
That is a very hard question that I don't spend that much time thinking about because my brain is still 100% focused on how to actually solve language learning and how to bring Babbel to the next level. So I'd probably just start in language learning as well.
And how do you feel with the entire focus of tech now moving to language and linguistics itself with generative AI and everything else?
Yeah, I think that is extremely exciting. So my background is in computer science. I studied in neural networks and machine learning back in the 1990s, 2000s. It's really great to see that many of those concepts actually work. They didn't used to work back then very well, but I think one of the exciting things right now is really like imagining what you can do with these type of technologies. So what we want to do at Babbel with that very much is how can we actually combine the human expertise that we have and like use all those generative models to actually supercharge our teachers. And I think like that combination of being able to scale the human experience by technology is something that is really, really exciting.
So with technology being ingrained into our daily lives, do you think that there comes with it some limitations or consequences?
Yeah. I mean, we all know these moments when AWS is down and you can't access Netflix, you can't access the whole internet. And I think that is one of those really, really scary moments. And I think that will probably just accelerate for the future as well. And I think one of the discussions we need to have in the society is like where exactly to put up the guardrails. And where to actually say like, no, we need to be able to innovate. Let's figure that out later. I think these are two extremes of the same thing, and that's what we're seeing around the world as well with generative AI, for example, is like where do we put the regulation in there? Like at what point is it too late, or at what point is it maybe too early? For Europe, I think we usually are more on the side of being too cautious. So I would really help, and I would really think and would love if at least regulation would come at a point when we understand much better what exactly we need to regulate and what the most critical points are. Because I still think the innovation potential of these new technologies is so great to actually deliver really, really a lot of value for customers, for learners, that I think we should just be able to like believe in the future.
Okay, so the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
So maybe I'd be growing something on a farm. So I think maybe planting some seeds and then taking care of the soil. That might be just a thing that I'd be really interested to do in another life.